Heard this song yesterday with Rod Stewart. Always reminds me of my grandmother. You said what?
I've never heard that song in my life.
You've never heard Young Turks by Rod Stewart? Dude, if my grandma knew how to get on Facebook. Good morning. It is Sunday, the 23rd of February. It is 11 a.m. on the East Coast. It is 8 a.m. here on the West Coast. Kiara's somewhere in the middle?
Yes,
what time is it for
10.
you? 10? Okay, you're like an hour behind Allory there. This is Plot Points, the podcast that is here to tell you, hey girls, I know that the coffee sound good. I know that Red Bulls sound good. Go ahead and have some water. This week, we are talking about our book of the month, the book of February. That book was Tender is the Flesh. I assume Augustina Bazterrica. I could be just whitewashing that, or whatever my accent is, or lack thereof an accent.
I would go with Basterica. The way you do the accents.
Look at you. You got a little twinge on there.
You know, I didn't choose this life.
I know. We're going to talk about that book if we've got a little bit of time. I mean, there's only 3 of us this week. I think that I have sworn Laura off of all literature altogether as a whole. That's the way I've conveyed it. But we're going to talk about this book. We're going to possibly read a little short story, a little creepy pasta that I consumed here in this last month. I thoroughly enjoyed. I think it sounds fun. But it's been 2 weeks since we have been together. In the center there, I have Allory, the world's biggest Jan de Bont fan. How are you?
Hey.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
The reference? Oh, I knew you would. And to the very end, we've got Kiara, our new aspiring throat singer. Yes?
Yes. I'm gonna I'll audition it next time.
Okay. We got another 2 weeks to get you there.
I forget I said that.
Promises of entertainment, and we still have yet to see Laura pick up a yo-yo. So
I know. She's not here to defend herself.
I think it was all window dressing. It's been 2 weeks since we have adjourned, either or. What have we watched? What have we read? What's anything that's noteworthy that people should know about? What about it, Allory?
I saw Love Hurts on Valentine's Day, which was really cute. We had big plans to see 3 movies that day. We saw 1 because we're old, and kind of plans fell through. We had to feed all the cats. This is Tubba Chubba. He's very clingy.
Love it.
But it was cute. I'm nothing to reinvent anything major, but it was entertaining. We liked it. And then I watched yesterday the Gabby Petito documentary on Netflix, which was good. Again, not a lot of new information about the case, especially because there was so much information because it was so heavily followed. That's really it. I'm catching up on Yellow Jackets because I didn't finish season 2. So I'm almost done with season 2 so that I can get started on season 3.
I heard a lot of hubbub about a lot of use of AI voicing in that Gabby Petito documentary. Really? Is it true? Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't. I guess I wasn't looking for that, so I didn't really think a lot of it. And I don't know. I'll have to go back and see and look into it. I haven't heard about that though.
I think I just saw a couple of BuzzFeed articles about it. Is why. Cara, what about yourself? Watched anything good? Read anything good? Saw anything funny on the street?
Hey, TV wise, honestly, I think I've just been in the trash TV space. All the way caught up on Traders. New episode came out this past Thursday. Hated this last Thursday's episode. It just left me in such a limbo. Personally,
I hope this is the first season that I'm really rooting against the Traders because the 2 that are left now, 1, I'm just I hate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially the one that's left. I wish nothing but the worst for her.
100%. Just very difficult to be in her corner for sure. Yes. And then just trash TV. Honestly, Love Island. I'm doing a Love Is Blind catch up tomorrow with my or not tomorrow tonight with my best friend. And then book wise, I finished this book. And I'm not a self help girl. I'm not really even a nonfiction girl. I typically, but this book is called The War of Art, or The War of Art.
Mm.
Kind of like a play on words for the art of war. But it's by this guy who I like as an author. He also does fiction. He does like historical fiction, based kind of on like Spartan Greece kind of vibes, like Battle of Thermopylae situation. Did a wonderful job with Gates of Fire. His name's Stephen Pressfield, but he did kind of a self help book about um, resistance and like obstacles to success. Also, if you see me wipe my left eye continuously throughout this, my allergies only manifest in my left eye.
I didn't know if you were just having morning onions. But go ahead.
No, just got a leaky left eye. Don't know what to say about it. But yeah, and it talks about kind of the silent things that we don't see that are in our own way all throughout our life. It was very motivating, and I, like I said, don't like self help, but it was like you can't say ex-marine because they're never ex-marines, right? But yeah, he kind of spoke in that kind of way, and it was
That's a
very
good one.
good. And then currently I'm reading None of This Is True and Remarkably Bright Creatures at the same time. I'm listening to Remarkably Bright Creatures and reading None of This Is True, which is a thriller.
Yeah. You brought that up in the group chat. I saw that. We saw it at Barnes and Noble the other day. I was like, oh man, I'm pretty sure Kiara's reading this, and I was like, it does look pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm always on the fence when it comes to thrillers, though. You got to really hook me in.
I've just been chasing the high that I got off of The Silent Killer for the last year. I really have.
Oh, nice.
And it really turned, one, it got me out of a book slump, and two, it turned me into a thriller person, because before I was like science fiction, historical fiction.
Right.
So
thrillers are my favorite genre to listen to for audiobooks. Like I think I might be done with Frida McFadden's entire collection now, because they're very fast paced and they keep my focus. But like I love like just especially a really strong narrator, like the ambiance that they add to a thriller, and I think it like really makes it. I prefer to listen to them than to read them like physical
absolutely.
No, I think that you were talking about, a book that got you back into a slump. I think honestly, and maybe it's a terrible practice, I think the biggest way to get myself out of slump is to have too much shit to read. I mean, if you look over here, this is my red pile. Right. Yeah, I mean, but I have a lot of genre, a lot of different genre. I've got some superhero in here. I've got some kill or be killed with a spirit that says you have to kill someone every 30 days or we're going to kill your entire family. I've got some feudal Japan on, I've got some old school Cormac McCarthy in here I haven't read. We talked about The Lamb. I've got two books that are on New York Times bestseller. I've seen like 17 different thousand people tell me to read these books, and I'm going to give them a try. And we'll talk here momentarily about Tender as the Flesh, and Miss Augustina has a book. Her next book is coming out next week, March 4th. But if you're at my Barnes and Noble, very early, and you get a Barnes and Noble exclusive.
Okay, I was curious about that. I saw that
a week early. Yeah,
in the group chat.
Yeah, I have consumed, when it comes to television, very, very little. The wife and I did sit down and watch Nosferatu. It had its merits, had things I liked, had things I didn't like.
Did you watch it on Peacock? Because I know the extended edition is now streaming on Peacock.
We're terrible people. We've got just a web browser and a VPN, and we just watch everything on the Xbox or the PlayStation on like a pirating site. But no, there were things I liked. I liked the atmosphere was absolutely great in it. I think Robert Eggers does that really, really well. I didn't care for Lily Rose Depp. They did her no justice with her forehead in this movie because everything she wore was back here. And I didn't care for her acting before. Maybe it's like, well, and then now this role, maybe it's more for wheelhouse. Maybe it's like that long and exaggerated. But really, she spent like 90% of the movie just going the entire time, like just spazzing and seizing. So, big props seeing Count Orlok's penis. Didn't need that, but it was there. Kind of, I don't know. I didn't particularly care for it. Neither did my wife, but my wife did inform me like it was actually pretty true to the source material. This story was. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm with it. And yeah, we talked about, I think last time we were on Uketsu, the Japanese spooky sensation. I'm sorry, the Japanese mystery horror sensation Uketsu. They even put it on the cover of the book. I would have finished this in one sitting if I didn't have to be a responsible husband or father. Super, super good. Super cool. I had 4 stories, and you think the stories are unrelated. They're all about these odd pictures, and of course, in the very end, they come together in a very, very grand scale, and I really, really loved it. First story was 2 college kids were reading this blog that all of a sudden stopped. A young man and his wife become, they are preparing to have a child. The woman starts drawing these pictures every day because she's an artist for her husband, blah, blah, blah. Pictures start getting weird. Complications with the birth. She dies during childbirth. That's the end. And then the blog stops. Next story, totally unrelated. A woman is being followed home every night as she picks her kid up from daycare. Next story, an art teacher who has a yearly tradition of hiking up a mountain and drawing it is brutally murdered. And they all get wrapped together in an awesome bow. And it was, like I said, I would have read it in one sitting and with a glass of water and not got up. But very, very good. I'm willing to read this. I want to read his next one. He's got one coming out about a haunted house and a floor plan that's ever changing. So I'm kind of into that one too. He's definitely one of those weird, like Japanese creepypasta YouTube guys where like, here's me. He's like a plaster face and he's like all cloaked and whatnot, but like videos of him just cutting vegetables. And then all of a sudden, like the last split second, it turns into fingers. Like, and then, Japanese people just fucking eat it up. Like, it's so revolutionary. But book was very, very good. I'm anticipating reading his next one as soon as it comes out. I think that's about it. We're almost to March. We're in March next week. I keep forgetting there's only 28 days in February. January dragged its ass. February
I was
just
about
flew
to
by.
say.
Yeah. Oh boy. We're gonna talk about Tender as the Flesh, the book that I'll just go out and say I chose for this month. Allory's already read it. It seemed like a shoo-in because I talked to Kiara and she just happened to borrow it from a friend, correct? Yeah. And before we talk about that, I got to give the content warnings because there's a bit violence, death, gore, cannibalism, rape, forced pregnancy, imprisonment, torture, infant death, grief, animal abuse. Did I leave anything out?
No, pretty comprehensive.
I think I got it all. It is a rough sell. It is a rough sell for a lot of people. I think I read it over a period of 3 or 4 days because I kind of had to give myself a little bit of a sanity check. I'm like, okay, it's a dark world we live in now. Mind you, this world in this book is even darker. But I'm like, let me get a palate cleanser and just watch something funny. Let me put on a YouTube that makes me laugh. But I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I have things I love. I have things I didn't. I had some likes and dislikes when it came to the tone of the narration of the book. Without, I had a couple times I had a few, maybe they were translation confusions a time or two, and I'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about the last line translation.
Okay, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
It had a last, thank you. It had a last line in it that was absolutely killer. But I think I'll go more in depth in a minute. If I were to rate this book, it's definitely not a book that's going to be for everyone without question, especially in the, the dark and grim days we live in now. But I would give it a 4 out of 5. And I was going to sit here and say, I had it written down. I was like, for what the book was, I was interested. I'd like to see what else, she writes and the way in which she writes it. But of course I went yesterday and bought the fucking book. So I obviously did. But Allory, go ahead. Tell us your thoughts. I know you read this, a year ago?
Yeah, about a year ago. I'm actually trying to find it so I can see if I rated it 4 or 5 stars. I try to, when I do my ratings, so I rated it 5 stars.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually read it in 2023.
Oh, shit.
In October, so like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But I try to, a lot of times I'll like do my gut instinct rating and then I'll like sit on it, and sometimes I go back and change them after like a day or like after reading some stuff or reflecting on some stuff. I would still give it 5 stars. Usually my 5-star criteria is that I would read it again. I don't know that I would necessarily read this book again, but there are also books that are definitely not 5 stars in terms of like literary prowess that I gave 5 stars because I was entertained by the story and I would read them again. So I am not a great, it's really just a gut thing. I know like that some raters have like very specific criteria that they go through and check these boxes. For me, I'm just like how did I feel at the end of this book? And that's usually how I read it. So the end of the book, which again we'll talk about later, is so like such a gut punch to me, and then it just ends. Like that's where it leaves. That I was reading. My husband didn't know anything about this book. He would absolutely hate it. He is so squeamish and like sensitive to things. Like there, like any sort of like social injustice or violence, especially against women, like he cannot. Like we watched the movie Nocturnal Animals, and it has traumatized him.
Oh wow, that was even for someone that can. Don't let me say I can tolerate it, but who can, right? But for someone who's
get smacked around,
for someone who takes narration as narration or a story as a story. No, me personally, I thought Nocturnal Animals was a little hard for me too. I was like, oof.
Yeah,
maybe that's just being a husband or a father. Yeah.
Yeah, it is his most hated movie. But again, like I'm very much too, I can separate my emotions from and kind of look at it like through the lens of a story. Tim cannot do that. But I made him sit down and listen to, I was like, all right, this is the scenario, this is the world. And I like went through the whole thing just so I could explain how impactful this last page of this book was. So yeah, I loved it. There are a lot of things, especially like the animal cruelty that I can take human cruelty all the time. We're used to it, but like when we start talking about puppies and lion cubs, I'm like, I just can't, like, I just skimmed right over it, like kind of looking for when they stop talking about animals. But there were things that I thought like that I really like the short, condensed world that it is, because you leave room for interpretation. I think that, another writer may have spent 150 pages talking about like giving different stories or on the dangers of going outside without an umbrella.
Right.
That like we just kind of get at face value, and you're like, this is what the society is like now. Yeah, I personally love it. I can see why people would hate it. I think people would hate it not because of the way it's written necessarily. Maybe if you're more analytical, if you are an emotional reader, do not read this book. I think, right?
I think that was my wife's stance when she read it, because my wife, she went ahead and cheated and read the Wikipedia, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you should probably read this book." I read it and I was like, I liked it. It's hard, but I liked it.
Yeah.
And she sat and read it all in one sitting, and she's like, I fucking hated this. And I was like, that's fine. That's all right. Oh boy. Oh no, I'm sorry. Keep going.
I mean, that's really, I think as we'll get into like more specific things, but that's my overall takeaway, that I really liked it from someone who like is not an emotional reader. I can really just take the world for what it is, and I'm not going to bring it into my own life. That I really enjoyed it. It made me think a lot. It disturbed me, which doesn't happen a whole lot anymore because I've read so much and digested so much content, especially
Right.
content, that like it yeah, it I mean it stuck with me. Like I said, this is one of the few that I was like, Tim, come here right now and let me tell you the whole plot of this book, which I am terrible at. So he had to have a lot of patience to listen to me.
Right.
piece
Are you
together
that?
just
Are you that person that has to always reach back, like, oh, but wait, you forgot this, and yeah, kind of you get to the point, like the big point.
kind
You're
of
like, oh,
I'm
by the
also
way,
the
they used to be married.
person I'm also the person that someone's like, "What are you reading?" And I'm like, it's this like historical fiction, but also there's magic and there's this girl. Like, I am not going to sell you on a book ever if you
Right.
ask me what I'm reading, like, because I just can't come up with the words.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss the ending. I want to hear Kiara as well. I want to hear her thoughts before I think we come together as a collective at the ending and maybe collective gripes together. But go right ahead, Kiara.
Collective gripes. Yeah, no, I enjoyed the book. Bottom line up front, it was a 4 out of 5 for me, I think. And mostly because I would call myself a semi-emotional reader. Um, so if the book doesn't evoke like, let's be clear, I enjoyed the book. I did not enjoy reading the book. I think reading the book was a very difficult thing to get through, mostly and pretty much only because of the meat packing references. I think were it not as graphic in those areas, I would have been totally fine reading as far as the content and the plot and the storyline. I think they just got really deep into kind of like those descriptive things. I did it in a day. I was kind of put off by Laura saying it was giving her dreams. So I was like, I can also be sensitive to that sometimes. So I'm just going to read it all in one day. If I have bad dreams, it'll be one bad night and I'll be fine, kind of situation. So got it over with really quickly. But like it really tickled my brain in a lot of different ways if we're looking at it from like the lens of like government control and conspiracies, and like if we're talking about it from like censorship, like a lot of these like common themes that happen in dystopian novels really like came to the forefront for me, and that kind of connection of like manipulation of people for profit. um, there were parts in there that we're talking about like skincare versus like using obesity, using all of these different facets of human life in order to get better profit out of them. So I really saw a lot of like real world connections between those kinds of things. And then I may be the one of the three who was not surprised by the end. I think that he was giving this like impression of being very detached, and I think I only got that from his relationship with, are we diving deep right now or are we
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the relationship that he had with the butcher, and kind of this like I'm gonna break her kind of mentality, and it was just very much so kind of a, I came into his relationship with Jasmine feeling like that was how he felt about women. And so I came into it in a very like he uses women kind of mentality. And so it didn't surprise me at the end that he used Jasmine in the way that he did.
I didn't get that. I absolutely see your perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, it was messed up, absolutely.
Right.
But not surprising, I think, for his specific character. But ultimately, I did like the book. I loved how it tickled my brain, very social commentary esque. But I couldn't give it a 5 because even though it evoked like kind of disgust in those areas where we were talking about
Mhm.
um, meat packing and whatnot, it didn't evoke like a strong, like I wasn't moved throughout it. And that's my 5-star criteria. I don't have any other check boxes
It's
except
got to change me,
I
man.
need
Yeah.
I need to feel moved. It needs to be transcendental for it to be a 5-star read for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two,
Um.
3 cents.
So I usually have people watch this our little YouTube after the fact, and it's usually my coworkers and stuff. So I wrote down a review, and mind you, I actually wrote down the little trigger warning I made. I actually wrote it in my notebook, but to give a little synopsis, because I know people go on here and watch this after we're done. Synopsis of the book. Hey, what I wrote was a virus sweeps across the globe, rendering all animals toxic to humans. They have to be eliminated, all of them, animals in captivity, wild animals, and even our beloved pets. Eventually, the human race lacks the alternative food source. Looks for an alternative food source, special meat. Human beings being raised like cattle. Uh, Bred for consumption. The main character in this dystopian horror novel is Marcos, a high level manager for a meat processing plant. Due to personal tragedy, he and his wife are separated. Marcos is struggling with the weight of grief and as well as the violent nature of his job and the world around him. That's kind of an overarching synopsis without giving away too much, but obviously we're going to spoil the hell out of it. I'll come out right up front. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. And honestly, I think the only reason I'm giving it 4 out of 5 because I was a person that was totally shocked at the end. Um, but it gets a 4 out of 5 stars just because I felt that sometimes the narration was very descriptive and then sometimes it was very monotone and you're just a passenger for this kind of thing. And one small nitpick. I thought some areas and some chapters ran longer than they had to when they could have been used somewhere else. There was a chapter, like the chapter when he's at the hunting lodge. I'm sorry, the 2 or 3 chapters are at the hunting lodge. I think we could have spent a little, like, I get it. Okay. Yep. We're hunting people for sport, right? It's terrible things. Oh, now we're telling, these individuals who get into debt and this, that, third. If you survive the world's most dangerous game, I'll pay off your debt, Mike. I thought some of that length could have been used somewhere else. I mean, I felt as surprised as I was at the end. I thought that I could have used a little bit more of just like, holy shit, I'm freaking out. There's, this uh, FGP, if you would, that's, giving birth. And am I going to be sent to the municipal slaughterhouses and everything that's running through my mind and all this, that. I thought I could have used more of that. I thought I could have used more. And there's another chapter which it gets the point across, but they spend so much time with it. When he goes to the facility with the doctor, that's just the smartest thing in the world, and he keeps going on and on about, hey, he's like, she's the most brilliant thing in the world. She wants everyone around her to know it, and it does. It gets to the point where like, hey, listen, here's all these terrible. It's here to paint this terrible scene in your head, like, hey, there's a person with their rib cages ripped open and they're hooked up to smoking cigarettes, and it's not like they have the means with this special meat that they're breeding in a sense to do good things, to actually maybe look for cures for this or maybe help the betterment of mankind, but they're just not. And that's just how terrible the world is that they live in. And
I saw that chapter so differently, though.
Did you really?
I did, because so I saw it more from his perspective in like, man, I whatever this conveys about me, it's going to convey about me. But the way that I read, because I mean, the book reads you the same way you read the book, right? I've always thought that about literature. But I really saw it from his perspective in the, like, she's boastful, but I'm in control and I'm not going to feed her ego. that whole chapter was very much like, I'm only gonna say this because, and it's gonna bother her, but I don't care because I'm not here to like make her feel bad. Like I just saw it from a very, I don't know. I like your take that it's like they have all of these notes in there, but like I was so consumed by him as a character and just kind of maybe the arrogance and the feel like he can get away with a lot of different things from him. So strange.
I really just took it from because the chapter before he's like, I'm done doing this, going here and doing this middle work for you. I'm tired of going to these terrible places. No shit, I'm done. I just took that as he went to this facility with, don't give a shit what you say, dude. Hurry up. Let's just sign some paperwork and let me get out of here. Don't care. I'm not feeding your ego. Shut up. Let's go. And but no, I
Did
can
you interpret him as someone who had a problem with the system?
I think he obviously in which he had a problem with the system, and obviously it affected him in such a great way. And I think absolutely maybe is where we differ when it comes towards the ending or not, because the ending totally caught me off guard. But I mean, he was so done with it. He became so resistant to it because he started to fall in love and started to cling to this woman, and maybe he become sympathetic in a sense, but I get, and you obviously you know that I was absolutely wrong when it came to the end. So I don't know.
What a trip.
But I do. Some of the narration was very good. Some of the narration was very monotone. I thought some areas could have used more weight than some of the others. Laura chimes in the complacency of society that made me. No, absolutely. Hey, welcome to the world we live in now. I don't
Okay, right?
I don't need to. I don't want to do that. I'm sorry, but no. And there was like I said, I just thought I felt like I really enjoyed some of the length of when he's talking about his father and him going to the zoo, and that painted a really good picture. This writer had some really good writing when it came to like, let me set this story, let me let you in on inside of how this person feels following this death, but there were just some things that were just too fleshed but not fleshed enough, like I said towards the end there with the attack on the driver to the facility. I thought that could have used a little bit more heft to it, and I hate to say it, maybe a little bit more brutal description. And I think that to really just kind of put you in that place and just have you freak out along, with the book at the very end. I thought that could have been fleshed a little bit more because I think she spent at least, I mean, the dream that the main character Marcos had in the zoo with, babies and trees and all this and that, like that, she went all out on that one. That was a good 5 pages of description of people and babies hanging from trees and all this animals and meat and whatnot. But I thought more could have been used some other place. I mean, that's it. Like I said before, maybe it's just my ignorant, dumb white guyness. I had a few translation misinterpretations. Laura jumps back in and says, I think the author was too wordy without saying anything so many times. Keep in mind, I didn't finish. I can see that. I mean, I can see her maybe kind of getting her dancing around something for a little bit. There were a couple parts. So when he talks about his child dying, they kept referring it to a cot death. And of course, I'm just like, me and Kiara, we sleep on cots all the time. I can imagine one dying on a cot. But I assume the translation's like a crib, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what I assumed. Yeah.
It's what I assumed. They referenced it 2 or 3 times like it was a cot death. And I'm like, I sleep on cots all the time. I can imagine how you die on a cot. I'm like, oh, they must mean crib. And then my favorite one, which might just show my ignorance, I hope you get a laugh out of it. The first chapter in the second half of the book ends on that cliffhanger, and it says, hey, he ran his hand across her stomach, period. She was 8 months pregnant, period. And me sitting there, I was like, yo! And then I flipped to the next chapter, and then the very first sentence in the next chapter, hold on. where did I put this at? It was so funny. The very first sentence in the next chapter is, he has to get going, but first he wants to have some mate with Jasmine. Me, I'm not fucking bright enough. I have to stop and think. Maybe why it takes me so long to read. I took it as mate. I took it in a crude way, like he wants to have some
Have
fuck.
some meat.
I was like, ew. I was like,
He wanted a little bevy.
no, he said he wants to get going, but he has to have some sex. I was like, oh, mate. I'm like, I'm a fucking. And then he said it like 3 or 4 times in rapid succession in the next chapter. Like, start on a pot of mate. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm an idiot. No, it's definitely 4 out of 5. It's definitely a book that it's one of those books that you're always going to remember reading it. You're like, oh, that book? Yeah, I read that book. And I'm with those books. I'm always going to be with those books. And I'm very excited to read this writer's next book. I think it's very much something like the world and the rapture has happened, and this woman has sought out sanctuary within this religious sect or cult. So I'm very interested in that. And I'm not gonna. I hope I don't sit and try to, put this new book up next to this book. Believe me, this book would have definitely got a 5 out of 5. But like I said, there's just some parts that just I had to fucking force through. Some that I wanted more, and I mean, everyone's their own taste. We got anything else? Do we want to talk about the ending?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the ending. Give from someone who read it 2 years ago, Allory, go ahead.
Okay. So he ultimately takes in one of the cattle humans, right?
Yes.
Into his
Grade
barn. And then seemingly falls in love with her. We don't see a lot of it on the page. Like we just see kind of like jumps. We see her end up pregnant. But we do get some of his internal monologue that's very much like him starting to humanize her, is what it seems like. And then he does eventually bring her into the house. And so at the end, he is with, I don't remember why his ex-wife is there, or his estranged wife. I don't know if they're actually divorced. I don't remember why she is with him.
They are not divorced. They are estranged because of the birth of their child.
Yeah.
She comes following his father's funeral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. He calls her when she goes into labor.
Yes, that's what happens.
Okay.
He calls her, says, "Hey, you need to get here. You need to get here now. I'll explain everything. Get here."
Yeah. So Jasmine, who he is named, that was meant to be slaughtered and eaten, is pregnant with his baby. She gives birth, and his wife, Cecilia, right?
You're in the ballpark.
Yes. Is ecstatic. It's a little boy. This is all happening within like the last 5 pages of the book.
Well, let's say she's not ecstatic at first. She's like, "You're a fucking idiot. You know what's going to happen? They're going to take you to the municipal slaughterhouses." She's like, "Oh my god!" And he's just like, "Hey, please, this is my child, please." And she, as a nurse, is willing to help.
Yeah. But once I meant more.
No, absolutely.
Once she's holding the baby, like she's
when
okay, cool.
The point I'm getting across is like even her shift, because they lay out her shift a lot for me as well, and even me, I was like, "Oh shit!" So, no, go ahead.
And it's a very quick shift, seemingly, because like she's there, like 40 minutes, and goes from complete and utter disgust with the way that he has treated this person, or what's going to happen to him, and now there's this baby. So ultimately what happens, she gives birth, they have this healthy baby boy. I think he slits her throat, right? Jasmine, is that how he kills her?
Yes.
He slits her throat, and then Cecilia is very upset by that, not because he has just killed a person, but because she said that Jasmine could have given them more children.
Yeah.
Because she's not able to have any more children.
Exactly.
So they essentially could have used her to keep breeding their own family. So she's very upset with him that he has killed her because they could have kept her captive to have more children. And then, so the last line is really where, like, that was the only time I had any translation issues, that I looked it up, and there was a lot of like discourse about this last line and the translation that was chosen for it. So she asks, like, Cecilia's upset because she could have given her more children. She asks, like, why? Like, why would you kill her? And so the last line, and they immediately refer to, instead of Jasmine as she had been referred to, like, just in the previous paragraph, the body of the female. Like,
right. Which I didn't pick up on that initially. And then I went back and reread that last chapter.
And they immediately dehumanize her. And he says she had the human look of a domesticated animal, which I got as a feeling. Like, I knew exactly what he meant. I just thought the wording was very odd.
Right.
And so I did. That was the first time, like, I immediately looked up, like, tender as the flesh last line. And there was a lot of conversation about the translation of that line.
Right.
But essentially saying that she looked too human, she looked too comfortable.
I almost feel like that's like the most human that I see Marcos, though, as well. I know it sounds fucked up, right? But it's like,
it does, but go ahead.
To me, it's like, because I have this interpretation of him throughout the whole novel of just being like, of using others and using, like, the only person he seems to have a relationship with is his dad. All of the three women that are involved in the story, he's very detached from, his sister included, right? And so it's just like, he has a relationship with his dad. He moves through the whole system. I could see him using Jasmine for the kid. And then I think it's almost poetic that because she had this look of a human about her, he couldn't continue to use her in the way that he would have used someone who was actually just meat, right? So
you're saying like almost in a sense of disgust.
Yeah, like because she had become human, he couldn't continue to do what he had already done to her. And so he discarded her, as opposed to, like, I feel like maybe he saw himself becoming attached and cut that part off of himself, right? Rather than keep her around. I don't know.
I absolutely. I'm a simple, easy Mark. I took it all. I was reading it. I was like, you know, these terrible things are happening and this terrible world around him, and all he wanted to do was come home and put his head against her belly and just forget about the world for a minute. I'm an easy Mark. I bought all of it. You know, I was like, oh, he loves her. He's willing to go to the municipal slaughterhouses because, as terrible as this world is, this special breed here is still innocent and full grade pure in a sense, because they don't know about all the terrible things that lie outside of these four walls, and its safety and this, that, and the third. I think honestly, where we talked about it but not enough is, I think the biggest switch for me was the wife, because the wife was like, oh my God, you know, she'll be back. Was, I think the biggest switch for me was the wife, because the wife came in, she's like, hey, you're a fucking idiot. Like, you're gonna go to the municipal slaughterhouses. They're gonna kill you. But she's a good-hearted person. She's like, I'm a nurse. I have an oath. I have an obligation. This person, you know, there's not only going to be one individual that dies here, but possibly two, the child as well. And then I think that switch almost got me just as much as Marcos, because I took it as, you know, he's, at the end of the day, he's just a guy who's a fucking terrible dude. Allory just said, my computer died, I'm coming back. Okay.
No, I think they really play on that throughout, though, because they, like, somewhere in my notes, I talk about, like, desensitization, easy for me to say, right? Desensitization, and kind of the idea that the less attached you are,
Mhm.
or the less sensitive you are to what's happening, the better you can cope with what's happening around you. And so I think that's
Right.
kind of, there's a theme of detachment. So like no one's detachment surprised me, just because in the end when she's like, oh, she could have given, she also saw the person as just meat in the
Right.
same way that everybody else does that isn't in the system, right?
Yeah. I mean, but you said it earlier, you can, depending on who's reading what, you can get whatever you want from the book or whatever you're looking for in a
Yeah.
book or in an ending. But just
Yeah.
like we said, when Marcos goes to this high-tech lab, I read it and I was like, man, they have all this and they have the ability to do great things and solve, find cures and, cure diseases and not, and they're just doing terrible, outlandish shit, which is just an outlook of the world we live in a sense. But
Big facts.
no, I really, like I said, it gets 4 out of 5 for me. It's a book that I don't, I in no time soon will I forget reading it. It was enough to where I had problems with the writing or the narration that I've already went and picked up the next book to see. I'm like, hey, maybe she's got some of that. Maybe she fixed a little bit of it. But I am interested in this next one. Um, I will read here real quick though. It's from her cell in a mysterious convent, cloistered away from climate catastrophe that has plunged the world into chaos. A woman writes the story of her life in whatever she can find: discarded ink, dirt, and even her own blood. A lower member of the sacred sisterhood, deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the convent and pleasing the forbidden superior sister. But when a strange newcomer joins the ranks of the unworthy, the narrator is forced to consider her long buried past. As she grows closer to the newcomer, she is increasingly haunted by the question that she can no longer ignore. How did she even get to the sacred sisterhood? Why can't she remember her life before? And what really happens to a woman when she is chosen to be enlightened?
I love a good religious commentary.
Right? And then I got lucky because the book doesn't come out until the 4th. And
Mm.
then my Barnes and Noble had it and had like the little Barnes and Noble edition, had some black pages on it. I was like, why not?
Okay.
I know. I think I brought it up earlier, but it's so great. Having a Barnes and Noble 5 miles away, but they're moving locations, so everything in the store is 25% off. It's so nice.
Goodness. I love that though.
I got like 5 books. My wife got um a cookbook and a couple other books. I think got like 8 books in total yesterday and spent $100. I was like, oh yeah,
Absolutely.
very nice. I didn't even burn up my Barnes and Noble stamps either. And I see my wife outside with the dog, and I don't think she knew that awake. No, I am definitely reading the next one. I know if you were to choose a genre that you radiated towards, are you a thriller girl? Is that what you like?
It is. It is. I genuinely, like I said, didn't get into thrillers at all until last year. But have you read The Silent Patient?
I have not. I am aware of it though.
Yeah, people are
I've heard a lot
very
of hype behind it.
polarized. Yeah, people
Yeah,
are very polarized. They either love it or they think it's the dumbest thing on the planet.
right.
But the plot twist, I always tell people, like I was listening to it, audiobook. I was on a treadmill and the plot twist happened. I had to get off the treadmill and do a lap around my house. Like I was walking and I had to walk elsewhere just to get it out of my system.
Which
Um,
usually like is like sky punching. I'm just like,
I was like, because it was like they lead you right up to the plot twist and then they say the plot twist. So they led me up. I paused it. I was like, if this goes where I think it's gonna go, I'm fucking done with it. I'm done with everything.
yeah.
I'm my whole universe. And then I pressed play. It happened, and I was like, ah! It was like that Gatorade moment at a Super Bowl or something. I was like, what is going on? All of the emotions. Um, and then I did read, I think, one or two other books by him, Alex
Mhm.
Michaelides, I want to say Michaelides, but it didn't do it for me. I have read some other thrillers that have gotten me into that space, but yeah, I've just been chasing the high that I felt reading that book. So I do continue to go back to thrillers. I don't like when they surprise me. House on the Lake surprised me by being a ghost story. I was very upset
Right.
about it. But I've heard really good things about None of This Is True. So that's where I am right now. The first few chapters have pulled me in, I will say. So I will probably report back the next time we meet because I don't think I'm long for still having to read that book. I think I'm going to get through it pretty quick.
No, like I said, I saw it in Barnes and Noble yesterday, and then like I said, they're killing it on sales, and everything's 25% off, and I saw a 50% off sticker on it. I was like, oh damn! I told my wife, I was like, I think Kiara's reading that right now.
Yeah. Apart from that genre, it's really just like James Rollins is my favorite author. He does like
what's he write?
He does very his big like series is called like the Sigma Force series, where you follow kind of the same characters, but each is kind of like a standalone novel. And it's like their secret agency like tries to uncover plots in like secret societies of sorts, but it's very kind of Dan Brownish as well as I think
Da
in like
Vinci
Da
Code,
Vinci
yeah.
Code. Yeah, very Dan Brownish, but it's kind of like those books that you learn while you read them. Reminds me a lot of like Artemis or Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Like it's very technical.
Did you read Project Hail Mary?
I started it. It's not that I didn't like it, that I didn't finish it, but life picked up. I still have it. Artemis, loved by him. Martian, also loved by him.
I didn't read Martian. I watched Martian and I loved it.
Yeah, Artemis was also very good. Artemis is more of a YA vibe, I feel like. But just the concept of learning actual things while you read the book, like the last James Rollins novel that I read goes over like the story of Homer's Odyssey is the like overarching theme. So you learn a lot about like the real world connections to Homer's Odyssey while you're following these people who are trying to like find the gates of hell in real life. But instead of like magic, it's actual like technology that is making these things happen. So it's funky and fun, and I like it. I don't know.
No, it definitely sounds interesting. We've got Allory back.
Hey.
So I'm on my phone now
because you have your computer plugged in.
No, our heat has been out since Friday morning. So we have like 8 space heaters going, and I unplugged my charger to plug in a space heater and completely forgot. So it's still like I still can't get my computer to come back on because it's that dead. So I had to switch over to my phone.
Dang. You guys have snow right now too, though, don't you?
Yeah, it's today is, let me see, a high of, well, it's 35 right now. Today's a high of 43, so it's not as bad, but it was like I think 52 degrees in here before we got like we went and got 4 more space heaters yesterday. So
ugh, I can imagine. Now you got me worried. I gotta go call. I talked to my grandma on Sunday to make sure she's got heat. We were talking right before you got off, Allory. I brought up a point. Were you as surprised as I was when it came to the wife switch versus Marco's switch at the end there?
I don't think so, just because we did not see very much from her in the book, so I don't think I had as much to base it on. And from his perspective, we really only knew how devastated she was at the loss of her child. So that was really her only quality, like personality trait that we even knew about. So I can see like that being her main concern, right? That
like, I guess I really didn't take it from that. Maybe I just took it like the world's terrible, but she's a woman and she's a nurse. She's a good-hearted person. You know what I mean? Maybe I just took it as that, and I was a little bit more shocked at her flip there at the end.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. Now, are you Are you willing to read her next novel that came out or comes out next week? Are you gonna pick it up?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I have like 600 books on my TBR. That's not an exaggeration, like on my shelves that I have not read. So I like to
Mhm.
buy them and then get to it eventually.
Same.
No, I it's what, like I said earlier, if I can continue to have a big TBR pile that's a bunch of different things, then I won't have any sort of, you know, uh,
Slump.
slump. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for. Um, no, I'm definitely with that. When it comes to, oh, I hate that. Let me fix something. Oh, that's better. When it comes to March, we're talking 2 weeks. We were talking about a March Madness. We're talking about a book that we want to read next month. Do we have any ideas when it comes to March Madness? I know Kiara, you brought up like a thriller. You have anything in mind or something that's you've been looking forward to?
Let me pull up my Goodreads. My TBR lives on my Goodreads. Um, I don't know. It's also getting something that's like not easily digestible, but short enough to kind of move through pretty quick.
You took him? Yeah, he went with me. My wife walked in and she just want to let you know she gave the 0 out of 5 stars.
It's
Never mind, she gave it a 1 out of 5.
I love it.
What about you, Allory? Any suggestions when it comes to March Madness?
No, my first like thought was something with like an unreliable narrator, like something similar to like Shutter Island vibes is what I was thinking. So I tried to do just like a quick Google search, but a lot of the ones that came up were books that I've already read or listened to or something. So I was looking for something a little more, um, I don't know, unique, I guess. But so I'll keep digging.
Have you read Gray After Dark?
No.
I just did a search, books like Shutter Island. Gray After Dark was the second little option. And then Gray After Dark is also on my to be read on Goodreads, which is the only reason it flashed in my brain. The book I'm reading right now is also highly touted as like a unreliable narrator. The None of This Is True book, and it's about a girl who does a podcast and she meets someone who's like her birthday twin, and then their lives become entwined. And that's not a very good description. I'm also not someone who's going to sell you on a book ever in your whole life, but are we looking in the thriller space? Are we looking in the horror space?
I mean, I don't want to sit here. I obviously have a preference. I'm a horror guy, but I definitely don't want to sit here and make every damn month some kind of spooky, scary, or bleak read.
Let me see. I don't even know.
And speaking of women having podcasts, Allory, I know that you watch the show. What's the Murders in the Building? What is that? What is it
Only
again?
Murders in the Building.
Right. I was sitting there watching Saturday Night Live, the anniversary special, and my wife brought it up. It's like, oh, hey, Martin Short's. I was there with Meryl Streep. And she's like, oh, they're dating. The rumors they're dating. I was like, really? I was like, oh, I saw them on SNL and they were actually sitting together. So no, I was like, yeah, look. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, I always assumed that Martin Short was gay. He's just always been so flamboyant, like in every role. So like, I don't know, like, and I don't know a lot about his early life or career other than, I mean, stuff that I've grown up seeing him in, but like, yeah, every role is kind of the same. He's a very flamboyant man. But yeah, I love that for him. Have you seen the movie Get Over It with Kirsten Dunst, Cisco, Mila Kunis?
Cisco is in it.
Cisco is in it. But they're doing the high school play like version. Shane West is also in it, of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and he plays the director. And they're like, if you have not seen that movie, you should watch it. Colin Hanks is also in it.
I like Colin Hanks.
Yeah, it is so funny. Just like early 2000s rom-com, but like Martin Short really makes it, and he delivers some of the most iconic lines of that movie, and that is how I picture him. He plays the same character in everything, but this is, for me, this is what I think of every time I think of him, is I think of him in this role.
Stanley Tucci gives me the same vibes as Martin Short in terms of
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I expect him to be as flamboyant as he is in every role he's ever done, but he's just a straight man who likes to cook.
I'm gonna be on the negative side of the spectrum here. Stanley Tucci needs to chill with all these fucking cookbooks. we were looking. My wife was looking for a cookbook yesterday, and he had like 7 of them out there. It's fucking too much. He had a whole table to himself.
I cast a wide net.
I guess.
But people love Stanley Tucci. I love him.
No, I love. We enjoyed him in the Netflix series where he was a prisoner on like death row, and he was the smartest guy in the room, and that was really good. Had David Tennant in it, but I did want to report back because I forgot to say we sat here and talked about trailers giving away too much of the movie. My wife and I watched maybe the first hour of Companion. Have you watched it yet, Allory?
Not yet. I still do really want to see it, but I was like, the first trailer, I was like, okay, so thanks. That's the whole plot. And I really I can't remember a trailer I was watching the other day, but I got about 30 seconds into it and I was like, okay, I've seen enough. And then I changed it because I didn't want to see anything else, because just give me a clever plot line, a good synopsis, a couple of action shots or whatever, and let me see. All you needed was Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. People were gonna go see it anyway. You did not need to give away as much as you did. It really, that's a bummer, but I still am gonna see it.
Give me 1 second. No, we saw, of course, I'm a sucker for trailers. I don't watch trailers. Whole movie, the whole fucking movie is in that trailer.
Yeah.
And we haven't. I think we stopped an hour in. I think the fucking illegal streaming site we were watching bugged out when we were watching. Then I was like, yeah, they get to it 5 minutes. 5 minutes in, you're like, okay, she's a robot.
Yeah.
It was a total bummer. Total bummer. But again, we're not all the way through it, because believe me, we watched the trailer for Barbarian, and you assumed that the Skarsgård boy was the big baddie, and obviously he dies.
Yeah.
So I'm going to reserve judgment, I guess, until I watch the end of it. But I am kind of disappointed. But anytime Harvey Guillen's in something, I want to watch it because he's funny.
I do love him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love Barbarian. I think about that movie all the time.
Babe, what do we call the thing in Barbarian?
It's Basement Mommy.
Basement Mommy, that's what it is. No, we really enjoyed Barbarian. I know, like I said, Companion came out. I don't think anything else is coming out that I'm excited for here in the next.
Hard Eyes came out on Valentine's Day that I really want to see. Haven't gotten around to it yet. I love a good slasher.
Do you get the same vibe as, remember the movie Valentine?
My Bloody Valentine?
No. The one with the baby face killer, had the mask on. David Boreanaz was in it, from Angel.
No.
That came out in early 2000.
It was 2000 or maybe 2001. Valentine.
I've not seen that. Mm-mm.
Yes, you have.
No, I haven't. I would remember David Boreanaz.
Yeah.
You try to gaslight me a lot into saying that I've seen things that I have not.
I feel like I know you have. I feel like we've talked about it.
No.
No, my wife is right. I do say that all the time. I'm like, yeah, you've seen it, and I do to my wife once a day. You've heard this band.
Yeah, the Talking Heads.
You've heard of the Talking Heads. She's like, no.
No, I've heard of them, but I've never listened to more than one.
I didn't bother with Captain America. I mean, I haven't seen a movie since we've moved here yet. I don't know if there's. I want to see Mickey 17. I want to see that.
I feel like your audio is cutting out a little.
Yeah, you keep
Thank you.
disappearing off the screen too.
I think I keep touching that.
I thought it was maybe because I was on my phone.
No, I think I was flipping my AirPods.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That does
I
make
want to
sense.
see Mickey 17 this month. I love Bong Joon-ho.
I
Did you
haven't seen the
decide
trailer for
about the
that.
monkey or whatever the?
I do want to see the monkey. Yeah, it's playing now.
I know you brought it up.
mixed-
I was like, do I read the short story? Do I just go in blind? Do I see it at all? Because horror slasher situation Stephen King's not my vibe. I learned with that book called Holly. So also again, I will send it to anyone who wants it.
It's crazy because I think I've Stephen King. It's always hit or miss, but I always like every interpretation of Holly in Stephen King's like TV series or whatnot, like The Outsider or Mr. Mercedes. I liked Holly in both of
The
those.
book. It was really that point when he said she's listening to the phone, but the phone is away from her head. It's on speakerphone. She can hear it. I was like, it's too much.
No,
I'm
I
okay.
get that.
Also, doing this really aged me, and I'm just
Look at you. You went to boozy night last night. You still got the X on your hand.
yeah, I've washed my
Hey.
hands several times and taken one shower. It's still here. Whatever they use, it's heavy duty stuff.
Rest of the day, Allory, you're just going to freeze to death or just be huddled by a space heater.
It's not that bad now that we're up to 8 space heaters in the house.
Jesus.
So, I mean, our house is pretty big and it's, yeah, the original 4 were not cutting it. So we got 4 more yesterday. But
Which
luckily,
one?
4 of them we borrowed. And then the
Oh.
other ones, like, we needed one upstairs in our bathroom anyway because it gets pretty cold in there. So you get out of the shower freezing. So we got, like, a couple of them we're going to keep. And then we have a shed that we're working on. So we're going to keep the big one that I got for the shed. But it has been a hectic week and my house is disgusting. So I'm going to clean. I already did a ton of laundry. I sorted my socks because I had so many like I could never find a full pair of socks. So I got rid of the singletons. And I'm going to catch up on grades. So today is going to be my work day because I spent the past week and all of Friday and Saturday basically sleeping. So
I like it.
Rest is productive.
I'm
Yes.
telling you. I've got some homework I need to do, but that's really about it. What about yourself, Kiara?
Not much of anything. I think this is one of the few weekends where I'm like, I don't have something that I need to catch up going into the work week, which is nice. And then my dog has Mr. Dragon Sir over there sleeping. He has a grooming appointment tomorrow morning, and my friend lives literally like in an apartment complex that's right behind where he gets groomed. So I'm gonna go stay at her place tonight, work from her place tomorrow, so I can just walk him over. But we're gonna do a Love Is Blind binge catch up. We're gonna have nachos. My boss, so I just recently transitioned from being contractor to full time employee with my company, and my new boss is also being brought into the Love Is Blind family by his wife, and he brought up that he was gonna make nachos, and he called it Nacho Libre with LIB capitalized for Love Is Blind. And he was like, I'm sure you'll come up with something more clever. I was like, no, I'm gonna snatch that. I'm gonna have nachos tonight while we do our binge. So
I have not started this season. All I've heard is that people are rebranding it as Love Is Bland because it's like a bunch of white dudes who look exactly the same. And so like people are not liking it so
makes
far.
sense.
Yeah.
Geographic
I have
is what I'll
not
say.
started the season yet.
Yeah. I can remember maybe one person's name, so I would say it is pretty bland comparatively, but it's shaping up to be a pretty crazy like honeymoon / in the apartments phase.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of who's picking who and triangles, because there are some, and kind of situations like that. So I'm excited about that piece, I guess. I don't know what it says. I want the drama. I want it.
You'll get it.
I
That show got messy. I remember the first season, like everyone was just like in love and you made it to the altar. Like I don't remember so many couples breaking up. Like what we had two who actually made it to the wedding day last season
Yeah,
or something. Like
I
it's crazy.
know. They're really just find me. They're really like, it's not worth it, which I think is also healthy. Like they don't want to go through the drama.
Yeah.
I'll pay the money, but at the same time, I'm paying my subscription to this TV streaming platform so that I can see
Right.
this. But that's very selfish, but still.
I have no context. I assume this is just like a bunch of people living in the same house and they're
Love
eliminating
is
people.
Blind. So Love is Blind is a dating show based off of the premise of whether or not you can fall in love with someone without ever seeing them. And so it's like a number of women and a number of men, and they come into this location where the men are separated from the women, and they meet and they go on dates, but they're separated by by partition. And
Yeah.
so they don't see each other for the duration. And the only circumstance under which they can see each other is if they get engaged. So if they get engaged, then they meet face to face.
Like literally engaged?
Yes.
Yes.
They get
Oh
engaged
shit.
and then they meet face to face, go on a honeymoon. And then after the honeymoon period, they then live with each other in an apartment in the city that they're in. Because they only do like one city at a time. So it's not like long.
Yeah, this one is Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's Minneapolis. And then after their period of honeymoon and living together, they plan a wedding and they go to the altar and they make the decision at the altar, is love blind? Are we going to make it, or are we going to call it quits right here?
And so
As
either
soon
they
as-
get married or maybe someone or both of them says no. But then each season, like I said, fewer people are actually making it that far and everyone's breaking up very dramatically before they even get to the altar. Whereas like the first couple seasons, like there are still plenty of couples who have been together for 5, 6 years now, like have been happily married, that have children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
as soon as you said Minneapolis, my wife went, "Oh my!"
Well, yeah, there was
Why
some TikTok
geographically it makes
drama.
sense. They're all white guys. They really
Yeah,
are.
Right.
it looks like
Very
it's in
few.
Minneapolis.
Oh man, no, when you said engaged, I was like, "Oh, is it just a term we're using? Like, let me engage in you in a date?" Like, no, you mean
No,
like
down
no
on
shit.
one knee, even though you can't see them down on one knee.
Yeah.
Wow, how long has the show been going on?
This is season 8, 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think so.
Jesus.
Mhm.
Come here, quick. I just can't do reality. I can't remember the last reality TV that me and my wife have done.
Our Next Level Chef. That's
Next Level Chef. That's the only reality TV we do.
The chef ones are
I've never
great.
done a reality cooking show.
They're the only
I
ones.
do like
That's
those.
the only ones that
Even we have to skip the episodes where the
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like in their life stories.
we always skip like the first episode where we're like, I'm Melissa from Minnesota and I want to win Next Level Chef because my grandma's sick. Like we skip the first 2 episodes of every season. We don't want to hear your sobby backstory.
Yeah.
It's like watching The Voice and skipping the auditions. What do you mean?
I can't do it.
I only watch the auditions and battle rounds of The Voice, and then once they make it to the live show, I stop.
Well, it's
Yeah,
like
I prefer that order to not watching it at all.
Yeah.
well, Jen brought it up. That's why we find the Great British Bake Off to be superior to all. Because
That's fair.
we like that cut out of it, but also we always love the dynamic of the Great British Bake Off. It's always like the old sweet man that everyone loves, like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, somebody from some like Middle Eastern descent that is just absolutely killing the competition, the funniest gay dude you'd ever seen. You know, that's the dynamic we like.
I have heard really great things. I've seen a lot of clips, especially like from the celebrity Great British Bake Off. James
Yeah.
Acaster was on there, and I love him so much. Have you watched Taskmaster?
I have not.
Oh my God, please watch Taskmaster. It is very British, but it's 5 comedians every season. We're on season 18. That's the current season that's
Good
happening.
shit.
But it's 5 comedians and they are given the like most mundane tasks or impossible tasks or stupid tasks. And then they are given points based on how they complete them, but it is the funniest show and we love it so much. We binged all however many seasons. I think there were 14 out when we started on YouTube. You can watch it for free on YouTube. And so now we're watching like the current seasons as they come out, but it's our absolute favorite show.
I think that my wife and I sit here every other fucking day and say that we're going to sit down and we're going to start watching this new season of Severance. We still haven't, but
We haven't
it is
either,
still
yeah.
it is still I think probably arguably one of the best shows on TV. And I've
I
heard
now have Apple TV.
you took the plunge and bought the last service you didn't have.
I did. Well, no, actually, I circumvented it by getting my sister's passwords. Look, you stream illegally. I go, like
We are big
nobody
password
important
sharers. Yeah.
ever catches wind, but it's important.
I tell you the cool workaround is that we went ahead and dropped my Netflix to the lowest tier with ads, but now I have a VPN and I just switched the country, and the US is the only one that makes you watch ads. Every other country is like, we're fine. There's no ads.
Hey.
We just switched to Japanese Netflix or UK Netflix. We're good.
I like it. And you probably get different shows too.
You get better movies, absolutely.
Oh, heck yeah.
You get like actually good, like Oscar-worthy movies on like Netflix in Japan. How about we'll come together collectively, think of a read for March. How about in 2 weeks we do one of the short stories and we'll just plug through it. I think that makes sense. And then we'll come together as a collective and find a read for this month. We'll see if that pissed you off. Okay. We'll think of something. If we want to go horror, we want to go thriller, something that's maybe in the line of March Madness, what have you. But I think we'll do a short story in 2 weeks, and then we'll come together as a collective for a read. I think that works. You're cleaning the house and trying not to freeze to death. What's that? Oh, there's a bird outside. My wife showed me. Dog didn't even notice. You're taking the dog to get all haircut and you're watching Love is Blind. I can't say that I'm going to watch it, but have fun.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't know what we're going to do. I think I'm going to knock out some homework. Maybe I'll coerce my wife into going to the comic book shop if I can tell her that maybe we'll stop at a plant store, or maybe the True Value, and look at the plant section on the way there. I think that might work. Yeah. She's over here going, plants. But I'm glad we all read the book. I'm glad we all enjoyed the book. And I'm glad we all enjoyed the book for different reasons. Except for my wife, 1 out of 5 stars.
And Laura with the DNF.
No.
She didn't finish it?
No, she
didn't.
I felt like she was like personally like, why'd you make me read this? She's like, I'm a vegetarian now.
I guess.
She might never come back, honestly, after this choice.
Well, I was being sincere in the group chat. I'm like, are you telling me like a book recommendation of mine has led you to be vegetarian? Like, I feel bad. And I was like, she's like, oh no. I was like, okay. I don't know.
I just thought it was mean spirited.
Nah. But
No,
Your
the
feelings.
book.
the book, yeah. No, we will all be in touch. We will be back in 2 weeks. Love talking with you guys. Garlic Jr. loves the FaceTime, loves the exposure. Don't you? There's not a thought behind those eyes.
Diva.
But,
baby.
enjoyed it, ladies. I enjoyed your perspective. Kiara, I definitely enjoyed your perspective. Allory, I definitely enjoyed your thorough research on different interpretations at the end there. I really appreciate that. But ladies, I will see you again in 2 weeks. Enjoy your weekend. And please take care of yourself. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.